So anyway, I think let's start.
And Jitsi, yeah, just to add something maybe very obvious for everyone, but it's also that a company like Jitsi doesn't, use our, how do you call it? Information to make money, to sell to advertisers, which is nice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's like we have to use these platforms more so they become better. But it's like this little, working out all the kinks. But
yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's get started. So yeah, we are new at this, like a lot of people, and just trying to see how we can communicate better online. Right. So I'm Jeanne Kusber, and I am the curator at the Verbier 3D Foundation. And we're really happy to have this talk with artist Andrea Hasler, Tarik Hayward. Unfortunately, Natalie Ball is unable to visit us or to join us today because, where she lives in Oregon, it's quite dramatically on fire. And so her and her family are just trying to be safe at the moment, and I think evacuating as we speak. So our warm wishes go out to her and her family, and so unfortunately she's not joining us today, obviously. And curator Alaina Simone, who has been on the Verbier 3D Foundation's board since inception. So we're really happy to have her as well to join the conversation today about, just kind of everybody's experience, and especially the artist's experience during the pandemic and during these crazy times that we all find ourselves in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, the development or the organic development of 3D started out as a labor of love. So you would say, co-founded by Kiki Thompson and Madeline Paterno. They conceptualized the idea in 2010. So we're really going into our 10th year in 2021. So it's exciting to be here with two past artists in residence and Alexa, to talk about the development of the park and the current exhibition, The Great Pause.
Yes, exactly. And then just as a side note, just if you are watching and you've never really been exposed to us before, we are a foundation located in Switzerland, in Verbier, Switzerland. And we have a residency program alongside a sculpture park. So where we invite artists every year to come out, really to get out of the studio, in this really, recluse area. Because we obviously do it off season, not during the ski season. And and we ask them to make new work, usually related to environmentalism, climate change, topics that seem to be relevant and related to the environment. And this year was very special. Because we had to, like most cultural institutions, postpone our residency, which was with Natalie Ball, until next year. And we hope that it will happen next year. And in doing that, I think we also just had to think of a way to still support artists. And I think once we knew that our programming was completely not happening, we thought, how could we support artists, or how could we, what are we doing this year, as a foundation that normally does support artists. And then just to give you guys a bit of background, then in conversations even that I had with Andrea and other artists, it was very interesting for me to hear of the artists' experience. Some people were really creative and making new work and, really using this time as as inspiration, actually, you could say, and then there were others that were completely stagnant, unable to create, unable to do anything. And the more that I spoke to artists, the more that I really started to see that everyone's experience was different, especially where they were. And also because, some countries are doing really well with cultural support, others aren't. Some people's exhibitions have been canceled, collectors are not buying as much art, programming has been canceled. Art fairs have been canceled, and I just thought it was really interesting, what all these artists are going through. And I wasn't sure that they were really getting a voice. So then that's when the foundation thought that we could give artists a voice this year and really ask artists that we had worked with in the past to send us their experience, so to to tell us in text, an artwork, an image, anything, what is their current experience now? And that's kind of how this conversation came about, and also the exhibition that we did in the mountains this year came about, called The Great Pause.
And which I think it's remarkable because it also allows for an opportunity to engage with artists that, you know, were a part of, you know, the residency program in 2011, you know, from the beginning. And, you know, because Alexa, you joined in 2014. And the, you know, artists that we have here, Andrea and Tarik, were, you know, a part of that program when it kind of switched over to, you know, looking at the climate change and, you know, the effects that had on the environment, and, you know, working with, you know, art and contextualizing, you know, their process with, you know, how they were, you know, interacting with that, you know, with the landscape.
Yeah.
So how has that been like for you to just, you know, work with these artists, you know, from 2014, but then also reaching back to artists like the Kubikoff, who are part of, you know, different types of, you know, segments of outreach and programs that we had developed throughout the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us as a foundation, you know, we also just wanted to learn from everybody. And then our easiest resource is from the artists that we have worked with. Because also currently we have to think about how we are going to change as a foundation, how we are going to support artists now in these, you know, unknowing times. And I think for us, yeah, it just, you know, always engaging with artists is how we become always a better foundation, and how we can know how we can help them or how we can support them better. And this year, you know, again, this exhibition was super impromptu. It was just, you know, the biggest thing we realized was, let's give the artists a voice, you know, because a lot of people, you know, are living in their daily lives, and, you know, things are crazy right now, you know, and a lot of artists aren't given that voice, you know, so that's the least we thought we could do this year. And then also learn from that content about how to be better next year, or how to change or flow, you know, in these times. It's really hard, I think, in the cultural section at the moment. But anyway, I really would love to hear from the artists, because that is why we're here. And so maybe, yeah, Andrea, you could go first if you don't mind, just like introducing yourself, talking about your practice, and also your location. Because one thing I'm just going to mention is I think it's interesting that we are all in different locations. And I think that also adds this conversation about, yeah, just our different experiences currently.
My name is Andrea Hasler. I'm a London-based Swiss artist. I've lived in London and worked in London for the last 20 years. And I was part of the 3D Verbier residency in 2014. And for the Great Pause, so I spent the whole lockdown and this strange period after that in London. And for the Great Pause, I submitted an image which is called Shifting Commodities. And it's a toilet roll that I photographed in a safety deposit box of a bank vault, where obviously normally people store their, you know, valuables, jewelry, or mostly money in. And the afternoon before the lockdown, once I realized this was the last opportunity to photograph it, I took a toilet roll, added a gold logo of a very well-known Italian luxury house, and put that into one of the empty safety deposit boxes, in connection with the panic buying, which really surprised me, that out of all the things that people were panicking about was in the UK was toilet paper. And in the lead up to the lockdown, it was the item that was sold out in all the shops. People were restricted to only buying one pack of toilet paper. And it's really funny, because at the end of the day, you can't eat toilet paper. It's not something that is an essential item to have. And you would have thought that maybe stocking up on other groceries, you know, for like, months or weeks to come, but it was the toilet paper. And so, that was my take on it, that suddenly the toilet paper roll has become a new commodity. And that was the image that I submitted.
Yes, and it was a new work.
I photographed it the afternoon before the UK went into lockdown.
Yeah. So for you, it was actually, I mean, you probably would have never created this work if it wasn't for what you were going through at the time.
No. And it was really, I sort of knew that I had limited access to the bank vault, but also it's forbidden to photograph in there, so I had to time my visit quite quickly. And yeah, I had a very limited time because I knew that was the last day before they shut completely. And yeah, they've only just reopened a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. And do you think, like during the lockdown, have you been creative? Have you been creating?
I have to say, it sort of went in waves. The first part of the lockdown was definitely more creative than the second part. I also, in the first part of the lockdown, I was still working towards I won a large site-specific commission for a art foundation in the Netherlands, and it still looked like it might happen. And then it got postponed now until next year. So the beginning of the lockdown, I was actually still working on that. And then that stopped, and then I sort of also gave myself a bit of a break and reassessed. And it was my studio complex I could still access it, and it's still, it never closed, but it was very difficult to order materials. So then I just ended up playing around with what I had, which is when I developed the Headspace series, which was photographing myself, but with different wax objects that sort of either cover the head, or some of them are called failed body armor, where they sort of cover parts of the body. It's like in one way, the baggage that we carry around with us. Yeah, and that it's the failed body armor, the thing that doesn't work, as in the armor element of it.
Okay. And yeah, I guess, so this experience, you've been creating, and do you think that your practice has been altered from the last 6 months? Well, I guess one could say everybody kind of had a home residency per se.
I know, but I have to say I like doing residencies, and for me the nicest element of that is that you can solely focus on your work. But I was at home with my family and 2 children, so to juggle that with still creating work, it was a juggling act. So I would say it's more of a contrast to the benefits of a residency. For me, is to focus solely on one work and work on something, whereas this was a lot more juggling family life, which was also really nice, but it didn't mean that I was focused enough to just be in the studio every day.
I have a question. Do you think that you would have submitted the same work, because this started in April, right? I think it was like March, April. But do you think after the social unrest and everything that was going on in the world, that you still would the work have changed? Because in the beginning it was about commodity, which is very much reflective of what your practice is about.
I wouldn't have and I would, because also at that particular point at the end of March, that seemed to be sort of the poignant thing, that everyone was panic shopping toilet paper and sort of
everybody was going inside,
right,
and to sort of prepare for that. But at that point, no one predicted what was going to come and how things would escalate on literally level. So no, I definitely wouldn't have, if it was now to submit something that would sort of summarize or represent the last 6 months, I wouldn't submit the toilet roll anymore.
Because we were
emotional.
It's just it's remarkable how many things have changed over the course of 6 months, right? It's and how even the work, everything, our perspectives as a world, globally, it's just different. Yeah. So I find that interesting.
No, definitely. And then Tarik, just really quick, not really quick, but just before we go into topics that we all can discuss, can you just tell us a little bit about, obviously your practice, and what you made for the Great Pause, but also your experience currently?
Me, a few years ago, almost 10 years ago, actually, I decided to retreat myself a little bit from the city and from the city, let's say. And so I went to live in a small valley in the Swiss countryside, and started to try to build myself a house, looking for some sort of simple, authentic experience, and trying to have to decrease, I don't know, trying to maybe have a sort of slightly stereotyped anti-capitalist, to say something, way of life. And so just to say that, just to say where I am, and to say that actually what's happening now with the COVID, to a certain extent, in my mind at least, it's been happening for a long time. And for me, the apocalypse has arrived a long time ago, in the way I perceive the world. Now, maybe just to say something, because it can be a little bit strange for me to say these things, knowing that I live in the richest country in the world. I am extremely privileged. Life is extremely easy for me. And even if I'm trying to put myself in hard situations, actually, it's never going to happen. Whatever I do, I always have money. Life is just sickly easy for me. I just need to say that, because I'm going to maybe continue whining about things, but it's maybe a bit, anyway. I was just thinking about that the other day. It's like there's this movie called Melancholia from what's his name?
Yeah, Van Eyck, or
Jesus. Yeah, whatever. And there's two sisters, and one is like perfect, and totally fits into the world, and the other one is rebellious, depressed, and is freaking out everybody. She's like and then the apocalypse comes, there's this meteorite who's going to destroy the world, and so the perfect sister does everything wrong, and the bad sister, so to speak, does everything well. Because, and what she explains, I think, and that's what I find quite beautiful, is that for her, the apocalypse inside herself already happened a long time ago, and she's kind of she's prepared for it psychologically. And it's not like when the world tumbles down, she's like, oh my God, we're losing everything, because in her mind, she already lost everything. And I guess as an artist, that's a little bit the way I look at the world, but it's a character, that it's not that, it's also the role I play in my work and as an artist. But so I guess there's a few things that I kind of like, in a way, with the crisis that we are going through. I kind of like that it shows so violently and so obviously all the things that dysfunction. It shows it kind of reveals everything.
Reveals
nothing new.
Nothing
new, but it's just more visible than usual. And I hope that will do something. I hope people will see that.
Well, because now it's unignorable,
right.
which I think a huge.
It's not that it was ignorable before, but I don't know. It's just
for
more present.
a lot of society, I think it could be,
I'm putting a lot of faith in the next generation, because I think they really are searching for truth. And it's like, for me, it's about being on the right side of history. Because, there's a lot of things going on right now. But like, where do we want to stand? Like, where do I want people to say we stood, like, in 100 years? I want to be on the right side, you know? And I think that's important, because it's not like just about like what, these capitalistic gains. We're all in art. It's like, we're in a luxury sort of a, field, but it's like, it's bigger than that. It's like, I see Verbier 3D as using art as hopefully a catalyst for change, to make bigger conversations and, in our respective communities, because we're all spread out. I'm in New York, you guys are in Switzerland, we're in London. We're all over the world. So, that's my hope. For
sure. For sure. And I think it's interesting, actually, Tarik, what you said, because I also did speak to a lot of people, like, let's say in culture, who kind of made this interesting point that like they felt that artists and people like us who are used to many ups and downs, especially artists and curators, you know, like 1 minute your career is high, the next minute you take a break, you know, I mean, I think a lot of us in culture are so used to a unsteady foundation, anyway, highs and lows, that a lot of us, I think, will be able to survive and also not, you know, have a not such a freak out perspective, you know, or such a scared perspective, because our lives are usually very unsteady, you know.
I want to quote Tom Sachs. I watched him give a talk at a sculpture center, and he said the test or the you know a good artist because it's their ability to thrive during periods of uncertainty. Yeah. So I mean that's like, you know, that makes a good artist. It's like if you're, because you know we're, you know, at the sculpture park in Switzerland, I'm sure there's, you guys, you don't have everything you need, like all the resources, you know, to build your project. You know, you have to be resourceful and creative to think of, you know, there's more than one way of doing something, and it's like that's what this is all about. I mean, even by using Jitsi, you know, like you could have been on
a new online platform. So again, apologies everyone for our
no, but there's more than one way to do things, you know. Yeah. So I think that's I think that's what this is like, making us, hopefully it's making us into these pearls, you know, pressure.
No, definitely. And you know, and also I don't know, I mean, Andrea and Tarik and Alaina, I mean, do you guys think that, I mean, what is your opinion about this idea of the role of art during a pandemic, or the role of art right now, you know, with the world being, you know, I mean, art through history, you know, has kind of had this, not role, but this way of exposing kind of the human experience, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You know, what are both your guys' thoughts on, yeah, what do you think? Do you feel pressure to create in a certain way with a voice now? I mean, even myself, I now wondered, like, now do I have to go forward curating with more of this kind of political, stronger stance, you know, because like Alaina said, do I want to be on the right side of history when I look back at what I did when our world was imploding? You know, like, so I'd be curious as artists, because these are questions I'm asking myself, you know, what do you guys feel about that?
It's a big question, but
that's a big question. But I think we can be honest, because I think it's
yeah. But I think that, like, you know, their work, like Andrea and Tarik, I think their work, you know, consistently has been about the human. Andrea, you know, you're always talking about consumerism, right? You're talking about looking at like society and these different class levels. So I think your work has kind of been trending on par. You know, it's on par with, like, you know, culturally, like how society has viewed, you know, the world based on like these the, you know, like with I love your piece, you know, I thought it was amazing, the one that you created in Verbier, the video of where you took the red carpet. And maybe, you know, because we can't play the video, maybe talk, I mean, because that is so relevant. I mean, it's ridiculous to look for the VIP area in a
this mountain.
Right.
So shall I quickly explain the video? So it's basically,
I mean,
it's myself as sort of the character of a luxury tourist dressed in an evening dress with very unsuitable high heels, walking, you know, along the mountain in the summer, carrying a gold VIP pole, the one that you would have with the rope in the middle, but where you would, you know, something that designates which one is a VIP area, and also a sort of a sample of a red carpet on my shoulder. And the whole video piece, it's a 15-minute piece, but it's basically, it's just this endless search of trying to figure out where the VIP area is. Obviously, yeah, there is no VIP area, but this sort of the symbolicness of still, even when you're in an area like that, there's still something better, something to aspire to. And the video sort of slowly, but towards the end of the 50 minutes, just so shows my exhaustedness of unsuitably walking around in high heels, going over the mountain pass, and obviously not finding anywhere. Lots of areas to practice or sort of feeling or trying to see if this could be the Via Peri, but not finding it. And in a way, interestingly, that has sort of become the red thread in my work, this endless search for something. Because I then created, or I'm still actually editing it, I haven't even finished it, but it's a video installation called The Infinite Traveler, which again sort of highlights, this endless search. But interestingly, for example, The Infinite Traveler, I started to shoot that over the last 2 years, obviously still traveling. And I'm also now reassessing, okay, now that we are not traveling,
yeah, exactly.
How and to be honest, The Infinite Traveler as a video piece sort of came about looking at social media, particularly Instagram, looking at other people's holiday pictures, and this constant being inundated with just the next location, the next place, and how people are dressing up in a particular wardrobe to suit the background of where they're standing, be it the Yves Saint Laurent Museum in Morocco, where it's bright blue, so therefore you dress something that complements that whole almost psychology behind it has really been the starting point of The Infinite Traveler. But now with COVID, that whole search has stopped, and it's about searching inside. So I haven't quite worked out how that video piece fits into us for the foreseeable future, not traveling like we used to, but how we're this endless search of something.
Yeah,
which is very strong. It's sort of it's linked to how we want to be seen, what we portray, on social media. I started to use for a photographic series. I started to work solely with photoshopping app that you use for, like, say, Instagram or Snapchat, and it's really, it's a minefield. And I'm really fascinated with how we dysmorph into something that we're not.
Yeah. And then thoughts on what I had said about before about like making art during this time or being an artist during this time. Do you think, you're just kind of going with the flow and kind of business as usual, or I don't know, or do you feel that what comes, what's being created now should have a message, or, I want to know you guys' thoughts on this.
I feel it's quite because you want to make relevant work. So in one way, I feel it's quite an important point to make something that is relevant to its time. One thing that also, it made me reassess my practice in terms of waste. Does the world need more sculptures? Do I just recycle old materials rather than, again, ordering crates full of new material for stuff that then gets spread around?
Yeah.
So I've really started to reassess a lot of my practice, and in one way, starting to recycle what was in the studio had initially had to do with the fact that I couldn't order anything.
Yeah.
I was so used to, you order it and 2 days later it arrives and there you go. And that also then made me reassess and think, actually, let's just stop. And in some way, I have almost completely stopped shopping because it seems irrelevant and it seems very pointless.
Yeah, I think a lot of, even from museums to artists, I think that's a huge topic that has come out of this, is like working out of necessity, working locally more. This idea of traveling artworks, this idea of, what could be possible. How we're going to refigure this kind of making work exhibition program, art fairs, going forward, and I think the idea of wastefulness definitely is a topic that has come up even before the pandemic. And I think even more so now, because whether it's like, the decreasing budgets or just really having the moment to look and be like, how much money do we spend for each exhibition, and then tear it down and throw it out? And how much are we spending on creating a work all over the world? Yeah, I mean, these are major things that I think are being talked about now, and hopefully everybody, all of us, can contribute to different solutions, because I think, I don't know, for myself, I think we can't continue the way that we had been, and I hope we don't.
I'm welcoming the change.
Yeah.
And I guess I would ask both artists, because I mean, I don't have children, but a lot of my friends who have kids have really said that their kids have been the ones, because I mean, this movement, like what we're seeing socially, culturally, like on all these different levels, is happening. I mean, the youth, they're really pushing it. And when I say youth, I mean like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, like little kids are really like asking for,
for
answers, and and they want to see things done right. I mean, is there, because of your children, have you felt any push from them? I mean, even though you're on the right side of things already, but it's like, have you like has there been
all
like
of us probably
level?
aren't. But Tarik, what are your thoughts?
It's
Going
a very
in times of pandemic to a change in cultural.
There's really a lot to say. I don't know. Maybe I can just give you. Maybe I can just say something a bit anecdotic and just something about myself, because as I said, like me, for the past 5 years, I really decided that we shouldn't travel. We should work locally. We should sort of slow down and almost sabotage everything. Like everything should stop. And I had quite a few radical thoughts about how I could hardly see anything pleasing or viable in our civilization or in my world. I don't know, because we all live in different worlds, but in the Occidental super rich countries I live in, I mean, it just seemed that there was not much worth saving. And then at some point I was in my small valley trying to live like a hippie or I don't know what, and I got bored, and and so I moved to Berlin, just like everybody, just like an idiot, to have fun and to profit from all the benefits of civilization. And it was a lot of fun. And then from Berlin, I went to China for an art residency. Although I always thought that these artists traveling around the world, they were just reproducing a kind of a capitalist cliche of, prospection and conquest. And I always thought that was ridiculous and disgusting. But anyway, at some point I wanted to go to China. I went there and I played the game. And it was great, very interesting. And in China, I ended up working with a small association who were trying to help people build their own pollution filters. And so I built one myself for my room, etc. It was a whole process. And then I ended building a giant one, like 2 meters by 2 meters, for the museum I was in. And it's a very big museum. And my air filter was made from like almost a jet engine, something that they use to cool down the pig farms. They have all these industrial pig farms that like chicken, but with pigs. And so they have these huge big ventilation systems so that they don't get too ill and it's not too disgusting. But it is already above anything you can imagine, of course. And I made this giant air purifier to be installed in the museum. So like, it was a way for me to enter their collection, and also maybe to consider myself just like a technician and be part of the apparatus of the museum. And the funny thing is, these filters, it was for filtering pollution, and you have to change the filter every year. So about in 1 year, my filter will have a big black circle on it made from the pollution, like a black sun. And they will send it back to me. So I actually did what all the bad guys do. I externalized my production facility in China, and they will be sending me back abstract paintings once a year made of capitalist pollution. and actually made of, because I don't know, that's super anecdotic, but these filters, they also filter COVID. It's the same HEPA filters, because I came back from China like 1 week before the COVID thing exploded. So that was pretty fun. I came back super ill, by the way, so maybe I'm the one who brought it here. I don't know. And then when I came back, I went back to Berlin, and then you had the COVID, and then at some point I freaked out a little bit. For me, this was making no sense. And in 2 days, I moved my whole family back to Switzerland, back into my little house in the mountains. And so during the lockdown, I've just been building my house, and life's been great and easy. I don't know. Did I answer the question? I got lost a little bit in my story.
No, but
yeah, basically, I just wanted to know, like, yeah, how you've been affected and what you were doing, and anything, you know, around you that have like has pushed you forward in any direction.
The children question, you know, for me, it's all, before I had children, I guess I was kind of cynical in a way, and also I thought that the infinity of the cosmos was more interesting than political problems. I wanted to think of poetry, aesthetics, and of you know, the infinite world of either the mind or space or whatever. And I always thought that politically engaged artworks were a little bit like didactical, illustrative, or I don't know, a bit simplistic, because of course life on Earth is kind of simple. So if you talk about those things, if you talk about politics, you might end up having sort of a simplistic work maybe. And I was just afraid of that. And then when I had children, I think everything changed, and suddenly I just wanted a much more simple, down-to-earth relationship with existence, and I couldn't stand to imagine the guilt that I would feel in front of my children when they would see how fucked up the world is, and they would ask me what I did, and I would say, "Oh, abstract painting," and I thought, yeah, that's not bearable. But yeah, still, I think it's very difficult to do both a good artwork and to be an activist, or to do something that is politically engaged. And yeah, there's a very subtle balance, a great tension between these two projects, between politics and art, for me. But yeah, I think that's what I want to work on now. And actually, I might want to go more and more towards pure activism, and maybe I'll give up the art. I don't know, but
you'll never give up the art. But I want to hear more about your work that you created for your residency in 2014, and then for the Great Pause, because we're I can't believe it's already 10:45 already. Or
yeah,
time goes by.
Yeah, but maybe I'll just jump to the one I did for the Great Pause, because it's super easy to explain, and it's also related to what I just said. You know, actually, this filter project I did in China, it was called Invisible Hand, and I imagined that this matter, industrial matter, floating in the atmosphere, and that would get sucked into my filter and make this painting. It was like the oeuvre of an invisible hand, painting with pollution, basically. And so when Alexa invited me, I had this word in I like invisible hand. I kind of liked this concept. I liked it because it's a fundamental, you know, capitalistic myth. It's like almost a religious belief. It's this belief that by magic, there is some god of economics that is going to regulate the markets. Actually, Adam Smith, who kind of said this phrase, he at some other moment also said that it didn't exist. But anyway, I think we live in a world where a lot of people think that the market regulates itself. And I like this idea that capitalism, which we often consider as either technocratic or pragmatic and scientifically, you know, making sense or whatever, I think it also is based on a few beliefs that are pure I don't know, yeah, like religious beliefs. And I thought maybe this invisible hand, the hand of God, that we would actually see from pretty close, being up there in Verbier. And so my invisible hand appearing in the mountains through the mist would have something a bit mystical and would create a tension between this Verbier mountains, which is both a sacred natural space where you are close to God, and it's also Verbier, you know, the place where all the rich people come with all their dirty money, and it has a little bit this reputation in Switzerland. And then Switzerland has an even worse reputation in the world. So we were, there was, and last, I think that's also important because it's funny to make an exhibition with artists who actually don't do anything. They just send a file through an email. And I thought maybe this invisible hand is also the invisible hand of the artist. And I'm a sculptor and I always work with my body, with my hands. And that's also how I find sense. I find sense in my work by getting exhausted, by sweating all over it.
Yeah.
And which, you know, cools down my thinking a little bit. And so I don't panic too much because I'm just working hard, and that it's really pleasant, you know. And to suddenly do a job where I just send you an email, there was also, I guess, a little hint to that, to this, to my invisible hand as an artist, and the fear that it induced of me working like an advertisement guy.
Yeah.
You know, conceptual art is very much like advertisement, and I hate that. So I guess there was all this in my,
No. I mean, it's but the work actually in the landscape is really fantastic. Actually, Tarik and Andrea's work, which hopefully people can check out either online, or maybe we can add to this talk after it's over. They're both really spectacular in the landscape, which, I mean, I think I'd like to also just end, like, I mean, how do you feel about, you know, obviously, you know, we asked you guys to send in something, like, you know, we just said, you know, for Andrea, it was work that you were already working on. So it was easy. For Tarik, like you said, you kind of were not out of your body about it, but that you were like, okay, this is completely not how I work, but I want to send something, you know. And other artists just sent their thoughts. Some people sent older work that they felt was relevant. You know, I mean, all the contributions that we got were so diverse. I mean, I could have never curated this exhibition myself. It's such a motley crew of ideas. But I mean, what do you guys feel about, or I mean, did you have any hopes about people experiencing the work, especially in the landscape, or under this guise of, you know, what we're saying, that here's an exhibition, or here is a body of content that we feel, or that we asked artists to tell us how they feel now. I don't know. I mean, how did you guys want people to experience the work? Maybe I could ask, or were you just kind of answering a question that I had asked you? Did you think about the viewer, I guess, is the easiest way to say it.
Well, in one way, thinking about the viewer, I thought it was the fact that it is, you know, in the sculpture park, there's no social distancing, it's accessible without, in a way, it's not touched by COVID like so many of the other projects or exhibitions, and it's an actual physical exhibition where people can go to without it being just an online viewing experience like we also tired of. So I didn't. To be honest, I only thought of the fact that it's a collection of artwork, not randomly put together, but coming from very different backgrounds, and respond to your email with what we could submit, and that it is just a two-dimensional. And I mean, I don't work two-dimensionally normally.
Yeah.
So it was,
and Tarik as well. Yeah.
I understand how you explained the wooden cabins. I pictured something completely different. But having seen the consistency of it, it's really, it's striking. And imagining that people go hiking, wanting, you know, space and distance and sort of be alone, and to then come across every so often a cabin with an artwork on it I think it's a really great thing you put together. But also the fact that, in a way, artwork in the landscape, I believe, is the way forward, because exhibition spaces and museums, they struggle with social distancing, the pre-booked tickets, a limited amount of people, and if you're in the landscape, you can allow for the flow of how people view it. And also people view things differently because they don't have any expectation, or they have different expectations.
Yeah.
And ones who don't even realize that they are going to come across artwork experience it a lot differently to the ones who might, have signed up to a tour or to sort of, but even so, it's depending on, what the weather is like, depending on the season. There's so many different elements to that make them experience the artwork differently than if it is just, queuing at the museum, getting a slot.
And then just to explain for those people who are watching, so normally we have a sculpture park on one side of the mountain, which is 3 kilometers, and then on the other side we have this 5-kilometer walk that normally we use for educational purposes to explain that year's residency and about the artist and about her process or his process developing the work that they did that year. And that's the space that we use to share this these artists' voices during this time. So it is something that you could, like you said, that you're going to experience. Like, I want to go on this walk of artistic content, or that you just think, or that the area set is a good hike because it's flat, and then you come across it as a surprise. So that's kind of how the exhibition is experienced, actually. Yeah. And Tarik?
I guess if there is an invisible hand regulating the world, I guess those who believe in this concept so much to, never pass any social law or never do anything for the poor because they deserve it or whatever, I guess they probably can think that the COVID is also part of a self-regulatory system. Like maybe if 20% of the planet dies because of this virus, maybe that's just the planet regulating itself by some sort of invisible hand, but a pretty hard one. And I don't know, I'm really full of contradictions, which is like everybody.
It's true.
All my childhood, I've been going snowboarding in Verbier and other places like that, and I know it's a lot of fun. And I was really looking forward to just go to the vernissage of your exhibition, because I was sure it would be a beautiful walk and a great moment. And I also thought that if I would enjoy it, it means that the public would also enjoy it, and all this is great. And on the other hand, I have to admit that people getting pulled up the mountain by a machine, wandering around, or maybe sliding down the mountain, I find that a little bit revolting in a way. And I think that, I don't know, I'm a bit old-fashioned here, I guess, but I do think that the mountain is kind of a sacred place, and that you must deserve it, and you can maybe walk up there by your own means. And if from time to time you get killed doing that, I think it's fair, and it just is part of the beauty of it. And when you go to places like Verbier or anywhere else, of course, I mean, there's none of that left. It's just a giant supermarket. It's ridiculous. So I guess the public that I was imagining that would visit my work, and by public, I'm also inside of it. I went there with my whole family again, and I don't want to be judgmental or anything. It's just that, I wanted to question a little bit this public. I wanted them to reflect a little bit on these, on everything I just said before about just through this simple idea of the invisible hand. What does it mean? Where does their wealth come from? How is it justified? Is it thief? What is it? But I always want to have a discussion with people
Yeah.
And there's nobody I don't want to talk to. Even the billionaires in Verbier, I want to talk to them. I love them. But...
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, just to end, I mean, just from the foundation's experience, you know, the exhibition has been really, because right now, I mean, Switzerland, which I think in a lot of countries, you know, this summer where normally people are traveling and going all over the world, Switzerland, I mean, at least in Switzerland, everybody stayed put, right? So, you know, towns like Verbier and also towns all over Switzerland had an amazing summer because they had visitors from all walks of life that normally didn't go there, you know. So for us, we noticed that this year's population of visitors was so diverse. You know, you did have, yeah, these people in Verbier who, you know, have 20 houses and just one in Verbier. But then you also just had, you know, your hikers or your families, yeah, it was really a diverse public. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say, from my experience, it was really interesting for them to be engaging with these artworks, especially because it's something that everybody is experiencing, whether, you know, in different capacities, but still, it is something that the world has experienced together, which is really rare. I mean, in my lifetime, I couldn't tell you something that we have all shared. So, you know, different than when the foundation puts up a new sculpture or has an artist in town. I mean, for me, it was really interesting to see that everybody connected, and also to different works, you know, like, you know, Andrea's with the toilet paper. You know, I think what's really interesting about that work is that everybody knew this was happening, but to actually see in the context of like a security bank box, you know, adorned with like a Gucci symbol. I mean, everybody, you know, that I saw really was stunned in their spots saying, yeah. And I think probably half of them did also hoard toilet paper, you know, and it was really interesting to see such a personal connection to many of the work, and Tarik's as well. And Tarik, I mean, just the times that I had given tours or been up at the sculpture park, everybody interpreted your work differently, which was really interesting, you know, and again, but also just based on like different personal experiences, you know, like, is this invisible hand going to come down and save the world? You know, are we all looking more, you know, are we all looking up to the skies for an answer, you know, in this time of what have you, you know? So yeah, what I found really interesting, and again, I really thank the artists and you two and everyone for participating, is because, yeah, I think it was really great that the foundation could offer, yeah, a voice for artists, but then also offer a connection or I don't know how to say it, but like a connection with the everyday public to what also artists are experiencing. Because if you're not an artist, you know, you're not always really visualizing or thinking about what's happening now. And that is the power of art. So, you know, this exhibition really did get people to even just refilter or think about things of their own experience, if that makes sense. And I think that really was the power of this exhibition. Because like I said, the work is so different, and that everybody felt it, you know, and felt what the artists were trying to say, whether it was text or image based or what have you, because this is a shared experience. And then we'll just end it with hopes for the future, or what do we think? Yeah, I mean, is there any, just for artists, you know, what are your plans? You know, are you just going to go with the flow and see how culture is like reinventing itself? Are you rethinking? I mean, I guess, Tarik, you know, you said a little bit that you have rethought already and gone back and come back. And yeah, I mean, what are you guys thinking for, I guess, until the end of the year, you know? Tarik, you go first.
Yeah.
Give me some time.
Yeah.
Me, you know, I'm really trying to be nice again, and I'm really trying to love the world again, and I'm really trying to stop hate everything I see and everything I hear. So hopeful, and it's happening. I think I'm going. Yeah. I've seen a lot of beautiful things during the lockdown. people seem to be discovering that, for instance, you can buy local products, you can go into small shops, or whatever, all the usual, I don't know the word in English, but and all this is nice, and I hope I hope there is this catchphrase, no, build back better. And then I think in England there's like a political party or something that names itself Build Back Better. And so they are full of sweet intentions. I don't know exactly what's behind it, but I mean, it sounds really nice when you go on your website, when you go on their website. I don't know, maybe some of these things are going to happen and it's going to be good. I don't know, people seem to have noticed that they don't necessarily have to jump on an airplane every weekend and go get a cancer on a beach somewhere. Maybe they will remember that for a few years and could be nice. I don't know. I'm really, I have a problem, is that when you have children, I don't know what you think. You also have children, Alexa. Yeah. I was going to say, Andrea.
Both of us, yeah.
I have
is that, my children, what I want to show them all the beautiful things that I see. Mm-hmm. And I find it not so easy, actually. When I go to a supermarket with my children, I'm always showing them horrible things. I'm always explaining to them, this is poison. This is somebody got rich poisoning us with this product, or this is a trap, blah, 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 blah. And that's really not what I want to do. I really want to show her beautiful things. So I guess nature is still beautiful. People can be beautiful. And I guess there are some beautiful ideas to be spread around. And I just want to try to focus on those beautiful things, just to not hear myself always telling the same horrible things to my children.
That's a good thing. Yeah. That's a good thing. Andrea, did you I have a little something I want to say, but I want to hear from the artist first. Andrea, did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I sort of feel we're in the midst of something, and I can't even, I'm not even planning till the end of the year. I'm just taking it bit by bit. I have potential projects, but who knows? I'm literally just, going step by step. But also in sort of in a way, following on what Tarik said, enjoying, the local community, enjoying what's around me, having, got to know my neighbors a lot better in the last couple of months. It's the little things. And in a way, I guess, in one way, I mean, in the UK, the economy is completely fucked. I guess, in one way, I mean, in the UK, the economy is completely fucked. But equally,
people that don't have access to museums.
Live streaming is on.
For people that don't have access to museums, I think public art, especially for a community that, doesn't frequent, these sorts of like cultural spaces, it's just an opportunity to expand, an imagination, and I remember and to interact with it, growing up in Flint, it's like, the Mott Foundation, even though it's like, people say a lot of bad things about Flint and okay, but still we had the Mott Foundation, which is a huge art collection, and they put public art all over the city. So as a kid, I would play with art. So I think my love for public art, and even, the sculpture park, is the idea to be able to dream, you know, it's like, it's a dream, you know, the sculpture park to me is a dream. And even showing it to people to expand their imagination, to say, and I was thinking about this the other day, and this is kind of silly, but I'm like, how did I end up in Switzerland? And I'm like, I wonder, because like I remember as a child just staring at that Swiss Miss box and like wanting to be on that. I was like, did I manifest? I mean, but like, you know, like just to be able to dream, you know. And I think right now we have a lot of dreams, and I think that all these conversations are good. And it's like, you know, you guys were a part of the program. Tarik, you know, we've never met, but Andrea, you know, I've been to London and we've met. So it's, you know, it's also allowed me to reach out to people that I haven't had the opportunity to reach out in my you know, everyday, you know, life. It's like slowed down things, and it's not business as usual. I think, you know, just being a bit more introspective, and it really is about those things that matter, and that's humanity, right?
No, I also realized maybe the business as usual is not what I want anymore.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are feeling that, and maybe like people like like Tarik, you felt that already 4 years ago. But
you
I
think of time, Tarik.
Yeah, you're ahead of your time.
Ahead of your time.
No.
It didn't take a pandemic to do that.
No, land art. I was thinking about what you just said about public art, and I was thinking, I mean, land art had this idea to make art that you cannot buy. Just technically, it's too big. You can't transport it. You can't decorate your salon with it or whatever. And I think, I mean, it didn't work. Of course, at the end, they still sold their drawings or whatever. But for me, it's still very important. For me personally, it's not that it's a vision that I have about how art should be done, but I find it interesting that a piece of art is a process, and and that this process sort of makes it difficult to sell or to buy. It makes it not so much like a product at the end of the day. And so talking about making art that is political or not, it's not only maybe the message that is in the work of art, but it can also be a little bit how you make it, or what is the process, and trying to sell a process. I mean, there's something, I guess there is something a little bit anti-consumerist or political just there, in this idea that the process is more important than the product, or that what happens at the end. And but yeah, I agree with you that public art is great. I mean, the art market, I mean, we need to find other ways than the art market, for sure.
And the whole thing about the process, especially with Verbier 3D, and especially like, you know, in some of those first years that that we were there, it's like I felt like we were also, you know, we were, you know, employing people in the community. So the local community had to be involved. And it's like it was like a community effort. I mean, I remember like Maddie taking up like a case of wine to the guys on the mountain so that they would, like, you know, put our sculptures that, you know, not to be in like the cow path. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you know, these things of like negotiation that we had to do, you know, in some of those early years that were really, to me, it was all about, those were the interaction. It was like, you know, talking to the artists from Switzerland, what resources, you know, do you have, or what materials do you use? That was the interesting part. It was the research and it was the process. So it was, you know, because the research also like has to think about the community and who's in the community and like, you know, what's available. So all of that to me is like, it's all about, you know, interacting, you know, and how we engage with each other. It's all about engagement, you know. It's like public, you know, and the public receives the reward at the end, you know, even though we also receive the reward because we had it's a call and response sort of a thing that I love.
Yeah. No, definitely. It would be great if that relationship between art and the public became stronger from this, you know. I mean, I do know that some cities have done that this year, haven't they? Like in Germany and somewhere else, where they've taken a lot of their cultural budget and is like really diving, or, you know, putting it into public art, which is a nice gesture.
It's happening. And the museums need to be challenged, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's one of those things, when I think about it, my mother grew up in the Jim Crow South. She was not allowed in the museum. Can you imagine never being able to go into a museum or a library? So you have a whole generation of people that are still alive that when they think about art, it's something that they weren't allowed to experience.
Yeah.
So that's what public art is for me. It's like bringing these, and, yeah, it's like leveling this playing field a little bit, and like, my background in traditional and African art and antiquities speaks to another part of that, and, it's also about, very community based and centered. But yeah, those are some of my dreams and hopes for the future, is that we come together with the public and make things a little bit more accessible.
Yes. No, yeah. Sure. Well, we might have to maybe get to the end of the conversation because we've had a really nice hour now. And apologies again to everyone who will watch this later or watching it now that, we didn't really get all the technical aspects together, so we couldn't really get any questions from the public. But hopefully next time that we have a talk, we will be able to do that. Because again, we are also still learning. For us as a foundation, we've never really done anything online or digital besides our website. So for us, we're also just thinking about, just a changing world. And I really thank you guys for joining the conversation, and I hope that this will be beneficial for people who watch it, just to see some of the things that curators and artists are thinking and talking about right now, and that we all can contribute to the conversation of how to change how culture has gone so far. If we don't like things, how to experience art, how to get the public more involved, how to maybe not make it such a capitalist world, but how artists can still survive, how to be less wasteful, how to work locally. There's so many things up in the air. So I really hope that, let's see what the end of the year will bring us. And I wish everybody health and hope. And and thank you guys.
Thank you. Nice spending the morning with you.
Yes, the afternoon for some of us.
Afternoon for you guys.
Yeah.
So enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll continue this and maybe have part 2, part 3.
Exactly. Well, the next conversation that the foundation is having is actually also with artists from the Great Pause, but in French, because we are in the foundation is in a French region of Switzerland. So we want to make sure that we are offering, but it will be 3 different artists also talking about similar subjects, and that is on October 8th. So hopefully you can join us for that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.